Hi everybody, hopefully you can hear me through the headsets and through the speakers. Thumbs up at the back if everyone can hear me. Brilliant, okay, good. Thank you everybody for turning up to attend Garrett and my talk on data-driven personalisation. Hopefully we can give you some useful bits of information to take away with you today. We're both from Columbus. We're sponsoring the theatre. For those of you who haven't passed our stand, we're right at the back, up by the keynote stage. So if you have any questions afterwards and we run out of time, which is highly likely because Garrett and I both like to talk a lot, so 25 minutes might not be enough, feel free to pop along and have a chat with us afterwards. We'll both be on the stand for the rest of the day. So yeah, please do that. By way of very, very quick introduction on who we are and what we're doing here. So my name is Gavin Masters. I'm a digital strategy transformation consultant for Columbus. I bumped into Justin from IMRG this morning as we came into the building, and he reminded me that I did my first one of these in 2006, which is 18 years ago, which is very depressing because it means statistically there is a very good chance that there is somebody in this audience who wasn't born the first time I did this show. So I haven't been having a bit of an existential crisis this morning, but I'm sure it's all going to be good. I've worked in retail, manufacturing, distribution, wholesale for a long time on the digital side of things, and now I'm sort of in the consulting business of helping businesses understand how things like personalisation and stuff like that can help a business thrive online, whether that's retail or whether that's B2B or non-standard digital self-service and things like that. And I'll let Garrett introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Garrett. I am the Director of Global Optimization at Columbus. Previously, COO at Endless Skiing, and we were acquired by Columbus in January of this year. So I've had about 20 years experience in digital marketing and optimization, helping customers improve their customer experience and grow their presence online. And right now, my focus is overseeing Columbus's customer experience and optimization service globally. Particular focus on retail, home and interior goods, and also B2B.
Okay. There's a couple of QR codes there that just link through to our LinkedIn profiles if anybody wants to connect, or feel free to do it after the presentation. Just thought it'd be, futuristic to be using QR codes in presentations. So for the purposes of clarity and just to make sure everybody is on the same page when we start talking about personalisation, we're talking about using data to target information to customers. We're not talking about printing names on mugs or anything else that might be set as personalisation. So if anyone's turned up wondering how to make t-shirts with their own names on it, I apologise, this is probably not the presentation for you. And I'm glad most people haven't stood up and left the room when I said that. But, so from the perspective of personalisation, I think everybody has this image that, Amazon and eBay and all the huge brands are smashing it out of the park when it comes to personalisation, and that personalisation is a really, really big, complicated exercise that involves masses and masses of investment of time and data and preparation to do. But the bottom line is, personalisation is something that can be really, really simple. So I didn't change Garrett's slides on this, but I've changed all my slides to be personalised to a UK audience. We're based in the UK. I can use context to know everybody is going to cringe every time they see a Z in the word personalisation, so I've personalised the presentation for you. Does that work for everybody? No, but law of averages are, 80-20 rule. People are going to be more comfortable with something that's personalised towards the audience, I know. So personalisation can be a really, really simple exercise. It can be highly nuanced. It can be something really, really detailed. I thought about, when I made this slide, picking somebody who was going to turn up to this, stalking them on LinkedIn and putting their personal details on there and saying, how are you enjoying the presentation? But then I thought about GDPR. So, if this presentation was very, very personalised, I could be calling people out specifically and talking about their situations and things like that. But there is a massive spectrum when it comes to personalisation, which these things fall between. From the perspective of personalisation as a term, it's a buzzword. It's an industry word that has very, very rarely been used in normal conversational context until the last couple of years. It is something that is still very, very new as a concept from a digital point of view. But I think from a retail point of view and from a selling point of view, personalisation is absolutely something that retailers have been all over for years and years and years. because it's really easy to do face-to-face. It's something that you do with a regular customer, comes into your coffee shop every day, you know what their order is. That's personalisation. You don't necessarily know how old they are and how many kids they've got and any preferences they've got, but you're personalising the experience. I think retailers need to focus on that side of personalisation as a philosophy when it comes to how they approach it in the future. The easiest way to think about starting personalisation as a retailer is it's a shift from the old email marketing perspective of segmentation, targeting groups, identifying key groups of people, and just narrowing those groups again and again and again to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're not talking about trends, we're not talking about segments, we're talking about people and who is your customer and how do you make their customer feel more engaged. And Garrett goes into a little bit more detail around the bits and pieces of that as we get into the examples and case studies in a few minutes. So, the presentation is all about data and personalisation, and I guess that the obvious bottom line is, if you don't have data of some sort, there can be no personalisation. Even me knowing that this audience is mainly English UK speakers and changing the first slide is a data point that I've used to personalise. So everything is about data. But I want to throw something quite controversial out, nice and early. Non-customer data is as important or more important, in my opinion, than customer data when it comes to personalisation. And I don't say that because I don't think customer data is important. I say that because I think non-customer data is far easier for you to come by and far easier for you to manage because you don't have to worry about GDPR and things like that. It's your data. So when I talk about non-customer data, I talk about things like product behaviours. Upselling products can be based on how your products behave, not about what customers have bought before. You need to sell refills for printers, for example. You don't need to wait to rely on customer data to be able to drive that sort of insight and information. You also have contextual information, and I'll get a little bit more into the detail of contextual information in a few slides' time, but that is something that is very, very important, and that's driving the move towards smarter, AI-driven, better personalisation as systems become cleverer. I hinted on it earlier. So when it comes to customer data and GDPR, there is always a question, how much data is too much data? What data is the right data? What should I do with the data? How do I understand what data I've got? I like to flip that on its head. If you use GDPR as your guideline for how you treat customer data for personalisation, one, you don't have to worry about regulations because you're following those regulations, but the GDPR rules and what GDPR forces you to do with the data you have on customers is best practice for how you should be treating customer data from a personalisation perspective anyway. So you shouldn't be holding data for the sake of holding data. You shouldn't be hoarding data on your customer in the event that you might need to use it in future, because you end up with loads and loads of useless data and you don't know what's relevant and what's not relevant, and GDPR doesn't let you do it. Too much data is a bad thing. And I'm sure Microsoft and Azure kicking around with their data lakes and things like that will probably tell me I'm a liar, but if you have too much data, how do you know what is the valid data? How do you know what the valuable data is? Start small and grow and understand. The more you curate your data and the more you understand what data you've got, the more useful it is. If you're just sticking everything into a bucket and hoping you can pick out some pertinent information, that's not personalisation, that's reporting, basically. Out-of-date data. So data has a lifespan, and I talk about that a little bit more, but if you start collecting data for the sake of collecting data, your data becomes stale, your data becomes irrelevant, and then it's not a personalised experience, it just makes you look a little bit clumsy. And the same with inaccurate data. The more data you collect, the more chance there is that there is inaccuracies. So, my recommendation from a customer perspective is treat compliance as a framework for how you should handle your customer data, because it puts those best practices in, and you're doing things that way just by rote. So from the perspective of trends and things like that we're going to be talking about, I guarantee there is probably not a single presentation that has happened over the last 2 days or in any e-com conference in Europe this year that doesn't mention AI and machine learning. It is the massive buzzword. Everything is absolutely 100% obsessed and focused on machine learning, and I'm a little bit cynical about it. I've been in the industry for a very long time. I've seen lots of trends come and go. I think AI is a very, very clever packaging of a lot of stuff we've been doing for a very long time anyway. But I do think that tools using AI are very, very powerful and very useful when it comes to personalization. And there's some good reasons for that. AI is very, very good at analyzing and processing large amounts of complex data, which is what you want to do from a personalization perspective. AI is great at identifying trends, patterns, exactly what you want to do from a personalization perspective. AI, however, is not the answer to everything. You know, if you start throwing things at AI and just using rules and just using behaviors and trends, you get the sort of experience you get on Amazon where everybody's bought something on Amazon and the next thing it offers you in the email is the same thing again. Well, that's a data thing. That's not a deliberate mistake from Amazon. That's because statistically, actually, more people buy TVs that have bought TVs very recently than anything else. But it's a nonsense data type for the average customer. So don't just use AI. You need to have real world context. You need to have intent. You need to have understanding. And you need to have that human insight that gives you the power that AI gives you, coupled with common sense, which fortunately machines haven't got quite yet. Predictive analytics, proactive personalization, being able to use that AI, being able to get a bit clever and try and guess what the customer is doing before the customer knows they need to do it. I think for a lot of merchandisers, a lot of sellers, a lot of retailers, they feel the perfect scenario is being able to do something for the customer before the customer even knows that they want to do it. It's a noble cause. It's a noble thing to try and do. It can get a little bit scary and spooky if you do it too well. So again, these are the things you have to kind of balance with. If I went into store and the first thing the guy did at the door was hand me toilet roll because he knew I'd been buying toilet roll last week when I came in, I'd be a little bit weirded out. And it's the same thing from a web perspective. You've got to draw that line of what is good customer service and what's actually just trying to freak your customer out of it. I mentioned historical data being useful, and it is useful for predicting stuff that happens. I think value in historical data comes with understanding how things can change over time. I don't see many retailers doing this fantastically well. Is things like, Garrett and I have both worked with golf retailers in the past, and golf is one of those games where there is a learning curve. You go onto a golf website, you buy the cheapest golf clubs you could possibly find, and within 6 months you've either rage quit the sport or you're spending £10,000 on a set of Nike golf clubs. There is no middle ground. With hobbies and sports and things like that, there is a learning curve and a journey that you can go through with a customer that is a personalised experience. It's being able to, you're getting better, you may need better equipment, you're upgrading or whatever that might be. And same with things like my children growing up. I still get emails from retailers that I bought baby stuff for my kids, and they're 15 and 17. So they've not got the message that children actually get older. There's a fantastic opportunity there to take somebody through a life journey with those retailers and actually communicate with them effectively, as opposed to just throwing the same material in. Everybody's health, everybody's tastes, everybody's lifestyles change as well. And I don't see many retailers necessarily reflecting that. I don't see health retailers noticing that I'm getting older than I was the first time I stood on stage here, and selling me different stuff that they were selling me 20 years ago. But again, there is an opportunity. And there's an example of this I use that is not massively tasteful, might bring the tone down a little bit, but Tesco's. So when I was 21, I moved out of home. I got Tesco club cards. They've got a lot of marketing information about me. I moved out and I got myself a cat. That was 26 years ago. Tesco's still markets to me cat food and cat litter. Now, you don't need to be a vet to realise that cat has been dead for a very long time. But that information is still something that's in their marketing stack, creating a personal experience for me and reminding me every time about the cat that I loved many years ago and making me sad every time I open their emails. So there is a lesson there about relevance of data and age of data. Context I mentioned. So context is really, really simple. What's the weather? What time of day? Who am I? How have I come onto the website? Great. But it's also really, really difficult. Context can massively change what a customer wants from you as a retailer. If I shop on Amazon, I would say 40% of the time I'm shopping as me, 25% of the time I'm shopping for my wife, and the rest of the time I'm shopping for somebody else. Amazon doesn't know when I come on who I'm shopping for, and it shows me the same recommendations. It's really, really hard to understand the context of something. But 90% of people, according to surveys and statistics by the likes of Starter HQ, are happy to share that data if it gives them a better experience. We need to be asking more questions as retailers. We would do it if they came into store. The first thing we do, hi, how can I help you today? What can I help you with? What are you looking for? What are you doing? Oh, you're buying something for your wife? Great, is it a special occasion? There is nothing to stop us adding to the experience from an online perspective with that AI-based chatbot or whatever it needs to be to get that context and get that information and personalize on it. It's an open goal for a lot of retailers, I think. Dynamic content's another thing that's up and coming and being very, very something that people are looking at. I think generative AI is going to be really, really powerful in creating personalized experiences for websites, being able to generate content that is relevant to people, the right tone of voice, talking about the right thing and everything like that. But I do think it's something that needs to be used in moderation. I've seen and I've spoken to retailers who want to completely and utterly rewrite product descriptions based on what customers want and things like that. It's really, really hard to keep a record of what a customer thinks they've bought based on an AI-generated product description if it changes every single time and they phone up and they've got a complaint. And AI is data-driven. AI will use that data to generate a product description. AI won't lie, but AI will not necessarily understand what the truth is when it comes to a product description. So AI is a good tool, but I would not drive the basis of your content experience on AI until we can be more confident with the machine learning and the algorithms that we've got 100% accuracy from that perspective. I kept this slide in. I like this slide because I'm going to start taking down hyper-personalization. Then in about 5 minutes, Garrett's going to start bigging up hyper-personalization. We'll see how he manages. But hyper-personalization is a new buzzword that's come out. Anybody who's been dealing with personalization recently will see that hyper-personalization is something a lot of the platform providers are talking about. I've seen it on a lot of landing pages and things like that. To my mind, hyper-personalization isn't a thing in itself. Hyper just means doing something a bit better than you're doing it at the moment. Hyper-personalization is just what personalization is going to be when you personalize a bit more. I don't think it's an end state, I don't think it's a product, I just think it means keep getting better and at some point you're going to be able to tick the box saying we can hyper-personalize. It's not much more than that, I think. And I give a good example of that. So if you've been on Amazon recently and you've bought clothing, I think they've got a fantastic little feature from a clothing perspective, which is that they give you this little bit of advice, which is, you're buying this piece of clothing, we think this size is going to fit you best, because based on everybody else who's buying clothing, they bought this size and presumably nobody's returned it, or not enough people have returned it for it being wrong size. I think that's great. From a personalization perspective, I think that's fantastic. But that doesn't reflect on anything else that Amazon do when I'm browsing clothing. And that to me is kind of a little bit frustrating, because I've got to dig into the level of seeing that clothing to know that they've got a size that's available to me, and that size might not be the size I'm searching for anyway. So if even Amazon can't close that loop, there's hope for us all that we can do things better, because that bit's great. This bit to me is the bit that actually probably converts customers a bit better. I'm going to hand over to Garrett. Do you want the... Yeah. There you go. To talk a little bit about some metrics and things. I was going to hang around on that side.
Hopefully everybody can hear me, because I can't. Context and AI, as Gavin was saying. I rehearsed my presentation with Microsoft. The AI gave me some feedback, and it advised me to not talk in such a monotone pitch. So apologies up front that if you get bored, it's my voice. I can't help it, despite what Microsoft thinks. So I've got a few slides that are going to go through, I guess, a bit of a practical approach to how you can use personalization, how you measure it, what you should be thinking about when you're doing it. So, there we go. Some of the important numbers to think about. Customer lifetime value. I've pulled some stats from a report by McKinsey & Company. Sorry, I'm definitely going to stand in everybody's way at different points. Personalization is key to improving the customer experience. Businesses who are using personalization are seeing 40% more growth in revenue than businesses which are not. Customers expect it. 71% of the respondents expected some element of personalization in the journey when they're purchasing, and 76% said they would be frustrated if they did not get it. So when we know that we've all been talking about customer experience being the new battleground for the last 8 years, this is why customers want it to mean something to them, and they will be switched off if they're not getting it. So good personalization, it helps with customer lifetime value, it keeps them coming back. Good first experience will bring them back for a second purchase. Recognizing them when they return makes the second purchase easier, encourages them to go back to the third and to keep coming back after that. Average order value, good product recommendations. Okay, I've got 5 minutes to get through my section. Thank you, Gavin. Good product recommendations, give them the right products at the right time. You'll get a higher average order value because they'll be more likely to add to the basket. Conversion rate underpins all of that. Better experience, quicker path to conversion, better conversion rate. As Endless Gain, prior to being acquired by Columbus, and still now, everything we do is underpinned by psychology. Understanding customer behavior, how the brain works, we know then how to persuade and motivate them to do the things we want them to do. And big things that we talk about are things like ego depletion. When users arrive on your site, they only have a certain amount of energy to complete all the tasks that they need to complete. If we make it hard for them, we eat away at that, and we reduce the chances of them making that final step. And personalization is a way that you skip all of that. You take them to where they want to be quicker. You allow them to skip the steps that they would have to do if they were a new customer you didn't know, and that's where it becomes really important. Set your goals, decide what it is that you want to actually improve. Don't just implement personalization because I've said that it's going to make 71% of your customers happy. Actually know why you're doing it. It's not cheap. It's not quick. It's time consuming. Got to make sure you do it right. And A/B test everything. If you're not already A/B testing everything, you should start. Personalization is no different. We're relying on things powered by AI. If you're not using AI, you're relying on logic of if this, then that, and that's not always right. We make mistakes. You need to test it, make sure you're doing it right. Even if you do it right, still test it, because you could be doing even better. You might have only just scratched the surface. Some examples, touching on what Gavin said, customer data versus your own data or other data. This is an example of something we did with no customer data. Carried out a load of research on one of our customers, Moda, who sells outdoor furniture. Purchases are driven by a few different things, but primarily big projects like a garden renovation, moving home and kind of trying to get everything set up. All of those are also dependent on many boxes and many different things happening at the same time. When the gardener and the landscaper is going to arrive, when the fences arrive, when the grass gets laid. And what that results in is customers coming to the site and saying, no urgency, it's fine, I'll take my time. So we tried to then understand, what would drive that? What is the driver? And it's the summer, it's good weather, it's spending time with family, barbecues. So rather than just waiting, we looked up customer location based on their IP address, gathered some data in real time from the Met Office. If there was going to be a sunny day within 5 days, we started showing that on the homepage when the user arrived. Rather than sort of the customer getting to the sunny day and saying, I wish I'd ordered that furniture, we're prompting them and we're saying, order it before the sun arrives. 28% increase in conversion rate. We didn't need a CDP, we didn't need a data layer, we didn't need any personalization tools. This was just relying on data that we're all collecting all the time. Skip this one. Different example, other end of the spectrum. Studio is probably the biggest catalog retailer you may never have heard of. They're now owned by the Frasers Group. We worked with them for about 4 years with Coveo. We had a huge range of data. They had a great CDP, they had a great data layer, and we could tell a lot about users when they arrived. Big objective with them was recency, frequency, and monetary. Can we get existing customers to buy more frequently on a more regular basis and spend more when they do? Those were the objectives. So we looked at what we know. Big chunk of their customers are credit customers. When they arrive on the site, what stops them from completing that purchase? They don't have enough credit. They don't realize it till the last step. And then they have to go all the way back to their account, top up their credit, then come back to the checkout and complete the purchase. And I'll knock these chairs over. And we talk about ego depletion. Asking them to do that big task in the middle is a problem. Pull data from the data layer and the CDP. Are they an existing customer? Yes. Do they have credit? Yes. How much credit do they have? X £1. Show that as soon as they arrive. Tell them you've got this money to spend. Enjoy yourself. Or you don't have any money to spend. Top up your account now before you start shopping. 5% increase in purchases from existing customers and 2 million in revenue in the first 2 weeks that we ran the personalization, and that's A/B testing it. Steps, learning curve. Start with the basics. You don't need a personalization tool. You don't need a CDP. Dropping cookies on users' machines based on the behavior they exhibit can give you really simple personalization, simple as new versus returning. Gavin used the example of golf. We have a golf customer who doesn't have a CDP, doesn't have a data layer. So we ask customers a question when they arrive on site. Are you experienced? Are you new? Or are you buying for somebody else? And we drop 1 of 3 cookies on their machine. Next time they come back, we know what they're doing. We know what they want, and we can tailor the approach to them without any advanced tools. The next step though, and we're going through that process with them, is actually finding the right tools that are going to take it to the next level. So CDPs, data layers, and start to surface that real customer data that we can use. What's their brand preferences? Am I done? Right, okay. Can I have 2 minutes to finish off? Okay. So yeah, CDPs, that's the next level. Then you get into advanced using your AI, so product recommendations, things like that. Hyper-personalization, deep understanding, cross-device. Cross-device doesn't just mean mobile and desktop. You know, it can be metaverse, AR. I'm skipping slides now. And you know, connecting traffic sources, paid search, email, linking all of that together in your mobile app. We got there with Studio. It was amazing, driving great volumes of revenue until Frasers came along. Personalization can boost revenue, 10 to 15%. Stats, I may have mentioned most of those before, but test it, prove your own case, measure your ROI so that you can actually put forward and pick the tools that are right for you. The future, blah, blah, blah. Probably don't need to say any of this because everything is already around us, but we're just not using it. We're not unifying the customer journey. Everything's still broken up and segmented and no cross-device link up for the majority of people, which is very frustrating. And call out for things to watch out for, emerging competitors. I might have just missed it, but I've not heard anybody talking about Temu and Shein in the UK as a problem. In Europe, there's panic because of what they're causing. Low-cost products, mass-produced, they're subsidized shipping, and in the current market, it appeals to customers, and it's going to make it difficult for us. We need to be using what we can from a customer experience point of view to get that edge, because they've got global reach, global data points, and if they start leveraging them in a clever way, we're all screwed. And you know, sustainability is not going to save us, because the feeling among customers that they should be buying sustainable goods is dropping because they don't have the money for it. 4 years ago, Capgemini did a study which said 57% of users would spend more for a sustainable product. Last year, that dropped by 30% to 41%. So customers are caring less about sustainability because they cannot afford it. And that is where Temu and Shein are benefiting. I think Shein's now like the most valuable global fashion retailer, which is insane. Key takeaways.
Yep. I said at the beginning, not just about customer data, it's about any data you can get. Anything is better than doing nothing. Seriously, go back to your office, change something on your website, just make it personal. Customers will give you data if you ask for it. Always measure everything. And if you jump on, I mean, wouldn't be a proper presentation without at least one meme. Just do it. Do it now.
If you want to know more, you want to talk about it, we're at the Columbus stand. I can't remember what it is, F something.
F74, but we haven't got F74 written on the stand, so that helps no one.
There's also no reference to personalization or optimization anywhere on the stand, so don't be thrown off. Come and ask a question. There's a few of us there from Enniskeane and the Columbus guys that will happily talk to you about it. Thank you very much. Sorry for rushing so much.
Thank you very much.